Before this episode begins, I'd like to take a moment to wish you a happy new year. As this new year opens gently before us, may you walk it with less haste and more presence. May you listen more deeply, breathe more freely, and trust the simple rhythm of life. May clarity replace noise and gentleness guide your steps. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for walking this path with me. Now let us begin. An old monk lived by a pond where lotus flowers floated. A young man came to find him tormented by waiting. He was waiting for an answer that wasn't coming, a change that was slow to arrive, a life that seemed to refuse to truly begin. The monk listened to him in silence, then invited him to sit by the water. He pointed to a lotus bud, closed tight upon itself. The young man asked when it would open. The monk replied that he didn't know. Perhaps tomorrow, perhaps in 3 days, perhaps never, if something within it wasn't ready. The young man, impatient, asked if he couldn't help it open, gently parting the petals. The monk smiled and replied that he could try, but then he would no longer have a lotus, only damaged petals and a flower that would never have existed. Then he added that the lotus didn't suffer from being closed, that only the one watching it suffered from not seeing it open. This story comes back to me often when I feel that particular fever of waiting rising within me, that muted urgency that wants everything to arrive now, answers to come immediately, transformations to be instantaneous. I know this agitation well. I carried it for a long time like an engine, believing it made me efficient, that it proved my commitment, that it was the sign of an intense life. It took me time to understand that it was above all the sign of a deep distrust toward the natural rhythm of things, and perhaps toward life itself. We live in an age that has made speed a supreme virtue. Everything must be immediate. Delivery, response, results, healing, success. We have internalized the idea that what is good arrives quickly, and that what takes time is suspect, even failed. Waiting has become unbearable to us, like a threatening void that must be filled at all costs. And when life doesn't respond to our deadlines, when it takes its time despite our impatience, we suffer. We grow agitated. We wonder what we did wrong, why it hasn't arrived yet, whether it will ever arrive. But this urgency we feel, where does it really come from? When I stop to observe it honestly, I discover that it rarely comes from reality. It is born from my mind, from my projections, from my comparisons with what others seem to have accomplished, from my fear of missing something that won't return. Urgency is a mental construction, far more than an objective necessity. It is the noise of my impatience, not the voice of life, because life itself is not in a hurry. Spring doesn't arrive faster because we ardently desire it in the middle of February. The child doesn't grow faster because we would like to see them already grown. The wound doesn't heal faster because we've had enough of suffering. There is in reality a rhythm that doesn't depend on our will, a temporality proper to things that superbly ignores our impatience. And perhaps the first wisdom is simply to recognize this, not as a defeat, but as a liberation. The Taoist sages had a word to describe this way of being in harmony with the natural flow of things. They called it wu wei, often translated as non-action, but which means something more subtle. Not forcing, not going against the current, not pulling on shoots to make them grow faster. They observed water which never struggles, yet shapes mountains. They contemplated the seasons, which succeed one another without haste, yet accomplish everything that must be accomplished. They saw in nature a permanent teaching about the art of letting things happen in their own time. A river flows toward the sea. It doesn't hurry. It doesn't worry about arriving late. It doesn't compare its speed to that of other rivers. It simply follows its slope, goes around obstacles, widens when the terrain permits, narrows when the banks draw closer. And yet, inevitably, it reaches the sea, not despite its slowness, but because of it. For it is that slowness that allows it to find its path, to erode what must be eroded, to nourish what borders its banks, to become fully itself before dissolving into the immensity. There are so many things in our lives that escape our will, so many things we cannot accelerate no matter what we do. True encounters cannot be commanded. The healing of a deep wound follows its own calendar. The understanding that transforms arrives when it arrives, often after years of underground maturation. Love cannot be forced. Creativity cannot be rushed. Wisdom cannot be acquired by will alone. All these essential things have in common that they possess their own time, a time that is not ours. And perhaps this is where our most intimate suffering lies, in that gap between our desire and reality, between our mental calendar and the mysterious calendar of what must come to pass. We want things to arrive now, and they arrive when they're ready. We want to control the timing, and the timing escapes us. We pull on the rope, and the rope doesn't yield. This resistance of reality to our desires is the source of a profound frustration, sometimes of despair. We exhaust ourselves forcing doors that aren't yet ready to open. But wanting to accelerate what must ripen slowly is perhaps a form of distrust toward life. It is to suppose that if we don't control everything, nothing will happen. It is to believe that we must make everything happen through our will alone, that nothing will be given to us if we don't wrench it away. This belief is exhausting. It keeps us in permanent tension, anxious vigilance, fear of letting go even for an instant. And it cuts us off from something essential, the trust that life too is at work, silently, invisibly, but really. For while we agitate at the surface, something is working in the depths. The seed we planted is developing its roots in the darkness of the earth, long before any sprout is visible. The understanding we seek is ripening in our unconscious long before emerging one morning as an obvious truth. The relationship destined for us is being prepared through paths we cannot see. What seems like sterile waiting is often invisible preparation, underground work whose scope we don't perceive. This idea is difficult to accept for our modern mind, accustomed to seeing immediate results, measuring tangible progress, checking boxes on lists. We want proof that something is advancing. And when nothing seems to move, we conclude that nothing is happening. But the absence of visible movement is not the absence of movement. Winter seems dead, yet beneath the snow the earth rests and regenerates. The chrysalis seems inert, yet inside it a radical transformation is underway. Appearances of stagnation often hide the deepest processes. I learned this the hard way, through periods of my life when nothing seemed to advance, when I felt blocked, behind, left out. I watched others progress while I marked time. I compared myself endlessly, and each comparison was a wound. I didn't understand why what seemed easy for others was so difficult for me, why what came quickly to others took so long for me. It was only later, sometimes years later, that I could see what was being prepared in those apparently sterile periods. Roots were spreading, understandings were maturing, strengths were gathering. What I took for delay was actually preparation. But be careful. Recognizing the right moment is not an invitation to passivity. It would be a profound misunderstanding of Taoist wisdom to believe it advocates pure inaction, waiting with arms crossed for fate to fulfill itself. Non-action is not doing nothing. It is not forcing. It is acting in accord with the natural movement of things rather than against it. It is doing one's part, fully, sincerely, then letting go of the obsession with results. There is work that falls to us, and this work cannot be avoided. The seed won't germinate if we haven't planted it. The opportunity won't be seized if we haven't prepared ourselves to recognize it. The door that opens will serve no purpose if we don't have the strength to walk through it. The right moment is not a passive gift that life gives us independently of our efforts. It is the meeting between our preparation and the opportunity that presents itself. As Seneca said, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Our task is to prepare ourselves. The timing, that doesn't belong to us. This preparation is often silent, invisible, thankless. It consists of doing what must be done without guarantee of results, of cultivating our capacities without knowing when they will be called upon, of remaining open and available without knowing what will come. It is an act of faith in the deepest sense of the term. We do our part, trusting that life will do its part. We sow without seeing the harvest. We walk without seeing the destination. We wait without knowing what we are waiting for. And this is where inner silence becomes precious, for the right moment doesn't announce itself loudly. It cannot be calculated. It cannot be logically deduced from data analysis. It is felt. It is perceived in a subtle intuition, a kind of inner yes that needs no justification. The Zen masters spoke of that quality of silent attention that allows one to perceive what the agitated mind cannot see. When the mind falls silent, something else can speak. When we stop calculating, we begin to feel. When we let go of our plans, we can perceive the larger plan that is unfolding. I think back to those moments in my life when I knew, without knowing why I knew, those moments when a decision imposed itself with quiet clarity, without the usual agitation of pros and cons. Those moments when I felt it was the right time to speak, to act, to leave, to stay. This perception had nothing mystical or extraordinary about it. It resembled rather a simple evidence, as if everything in me suddenly attuned to the same note. The body was relaxed. The heart was peaceful. The mind was clear. And the right action was born from that harmony, without effort, without doubt, without struggle. Conversely, I remember the moments when I forced, when I acted despite an inner discomfort, when I silenced that voice saying not yet or not like this. I remember the tension in my body, the agitation in my thoughts, that diffuse feeling that something was wrong. And almost invariably, those forced moments produced forced results. Relationships that didn't last, projects that failed, words I regretted. Bad timing leaves traces. What arrives too early exhausts. What arrives too late causes suffering. Only what arrives at the right moment endures. This bad timing, we all know it intimately. We have all spoken words before. They were ready to be heard, made proposals before the other person was ready to receive them, made decisions before having all the necessary information. We have all experienced the bitterness of fruit picked too early and the sadness of missed opportunities because we waited too long. This subtle dance between impulse and patience, between action and waiting, between yes and not yet, is perhaps the learning of a lifetime. And this learning necessarily passes through error. There is no recipe for finding the right moment. There is no infallible technique. There is only accumulated experience, trial and error, failures that teach us and successes that encourage us. Each time we force and it doesn't work, we learn something about our impatience. Each time we wait too long and the opportunity escapes us, we learn something about our fear of acting. These lessons are precious, even if they are painful. They progressively refine our discernment, our ability to sense the moment that is right. But how do we distinguish wise waiting from procrastination? How do we know if we are respecting the right time or fleeing out of fear? It's a question I often ask myself, because the boundary is sometimes blurry. I believe the difference lies in the inner quality of the waiting. Wise waiting is peaceful, trusting, open. It isn't necessarily pleasant. Waiting is rarely pleasant, but it is inhabited by a form of fundamental serenity. Procrastination, on the other hand, is agitated, anxious, evasive. It is accompanied by shame, justifications, averting one's gaze. One is an act of trust, the other an act of fear. The body often knows before the mind. When I postpone something out of fear, my body contracts. There is tension in the chest, a diffuse discomfort, a desire to think about something else. When I wait, because the moment hasn't come, my body is more relaxed. I can look the situation in the face without looking away. I can accept the waiting without numbing it. This bodily difference is a precious guide, perhaps the most reliable one we have. Our body is an instrument of discernment that we neglect too often. This trust in the process of life is perhaps the most difficult lesson to learn. We live in a culture of control where everything that escapes our mastery makes us anxious. We want guarantees, certainties, plans that unfold exactly as anticipated. But life doesn't work that way. It is unpredictable, mysterious, often disconcerting. And perhaps our task is not to master it, but to trust it. Not a naive trust that would deny difficulties, but a deep trust that recognizes that even what we don't understand may have meaning. There are delays in my life that have saved me, refusals that have protected me from paths that wouldn't have suited me, detours that have led me exactly where I needed to go, even though I didn't know it at the time. In retrospect, I can see how what seemed to be failures or blocks was actually necessary reorientation. What I took for bad luck was sometimes luck in disguise. What I experienced as delay was sometimes protection. This retrospective view doesn't suppress the suffering of the moment. Waiting remains difficult even when we know it has meaning, but it nourishes trust for the moments to come. This trust is not a capitulation to fate. It is not a resigned passivity that would say, why bother making efforts since everything is written? It is rather a humble collaboration with the mystery of life. We do our part, sincerely, fully, with all the courage we are capable of. Then we let go of the obsession with results and timing. We plant and we water, but we accept that we cannot control the germination. We walk with determination, but we accept that we cannot master the path. This posture is not easy. It requires both commitment and detachment, action and letting go, will and surrender. And then there are those moments when the door finally opens. Those moments when what has been ripe for a long time finally finds its expression. Those moments when obstacles fall, when encounters happen, when paths open as if by magic. Those moments have a particular quality. They're not forced. They have a fluidity, an obviousness, a rightness that is unmistakable. What seemed impossible suddenly becomes simple. What seemed far away suddenly becomes near. Everything seems to align to allow what was meant to happen. Those moments of grace are not accidents. They are the flowering of everything that has been prepared, consciously or not. They are the meeting between our availability and the opportunity that presents itself. But they ask something of us, the ability to recognize them when they arrive and the courage to seize them. Because the right moment doesn't stay open indefinitely. The door that opens can close again. The opportunity that presents itself can pass. There is a time to wait and a time to act, and wisdom lies in knowing how to distinguish one from the other. Recognizing the right moment when it presents itself is not always obvious. It often arrives discreetly, without fanfare, without spectacular signs. It sometimes resembles a light intuition, easily ignored if we aren't attentive. It manifests as a quiet clarity, an absence of inner struggle, a coherence between what we think, what we feel, and what we perceive of the situation. The body relaxes, the heart opens, the mind becomes calm. These subtle signals are our compass, but we must have cultivated inner silence to perceive them. And it is here that an apparent paradox may be resolved. If what must happen will happen at the right moment, why not simply wait passively? If the timing doesn't belong to us, what's the point of making efforts? The answer is that waiting itself can be lived in different ways. We can wait in anxiety or in trust. We can wait while wearing ourselves down or while preparing ourselves. We can wait while resisting the present or while fully inhabiting it. The quality of our waiting changes everything, even if it doesn't change the moment when things arrive. Trusting the right moment doesn't excuse us from fully living the present moment. It is in fact exactly the opposite. It is because we trust the timing of what must happen that we can free ourselves from anxiety about the future and make ourselves available to what is here, now. The present moment is the only real moment. It is the only place where we can act, feel, love, create. Waiting for the right moment doesn't mean living in waiting. It means living fully here and now, while trusting what will come in its own time. This full presence to the present is perhaps the highest form of trust in the right moment. It says, I do what must be done now, and I let tomorrow take care of itself. It says, I don't know when things will arrive, but I know that this moment, the one I am living now, deserves all my attention. It reconciles patient waiting and engaged presence, letting go of the future and involvement in the present. It is a way of being at peace with time rather than struggling against it. And perhaps this is the final invitation of this reflection, not to master time, but to attune to it. Like a musician attunes to their orchestra, like a dancer attunes to the music, like a sailor attunes to the wind and currents. There is in life a rhythm vaster than our own, a music we did not compose, but with which we can learn to dance. This rhythm is not always the one we would have chosen. It is sometimes slower than our impatience, sometimes faster than our preparation. But it is the only real rhythm, and it is with it that we must learn to live. The old monk's lotus will eventually open. Perhaps tomorrow, perhaps in a week. Perhaps at the exact moment when the young man will have stopped waiting for it and gone walking elsewhere. And when it opens, it will be perfect. Not because it will be the moment someone chose, but because it will be the moment when all conditions are gathered for that flowering. The sun will have the right angle, the water will have the right temperature, the flower will have the right maturity, and none of this will have depended on anyone's impatience or patience. What must happen will happen at the right moment. Our task is not to force that moment, but to prepare ourselves for it. Our task is not to control the timing, but to remain attentive when it presents itself. Our task is not to understand why now or why not yet, but to trust the mystery that governs these things. And in that trust, something relaxes. The pressure eases, the urgency dissipates, and we discover that waiting itself can become a habitable place, a space of preparation and maturation, a full time rather than an empty time. So perhaps you could, in this instant, release a little of that particular tension that accompanies your waiting. Not give up on what you hope for, but stop gripping it so tightly. Not abandon your projects, but trust them enough to let them ripen. Not stop walking toward what calls you, but accept that the path has its own detours and its own timing. Peace is born when we stop getting ahead of life. Trust is born when we accept not understanding everything. And joy is born when we discover that this moment, exactly as it is perhaps already the right moment. The one where you are reading these words. The one where something in you grows calm. The one where you begin to trust time.